Hello lovely people, I'm Catherine and welcome to this week's Journal for All Seasons, the self-care journaling. I've been watching a channel that someone recommended to me by an artist in California called Laurie Marie Jenkins, and I will put a link down below to her specific video. But yeah, do be sure to go and check her out if you don't know her already. She's a mixed media artist. I love her grungy style and her presentation and everything. And one particular video of hers I was watching, and she did a pop-up. So very much inspired by that. That is what I'm going to do. Now I'm at the end of my first signature. So here is my gutter. No, she did it by, she works in altered books, so she did it by cutting 2 pages to create the flaps for the pop-up to sit in. I can't do that because I would cut half of my lovely Vasilisa up, and I don't want to do that. I guess I could go a page further and work here, but I don't really want to do that either. So I thought what I would try and do is insert some card. I've got this, it's out of a pad of, I got a pad of white, black and this brown colour when I was in France still, and it's kind of cardstock, I guess, and I thought of inserting it and gluing it or sticking it somehow in here. And this is the image I want to use as pop-up. If you watch me make the journal, you will have seen this image because it's been living in the pocket in the front here. And I've written a poem which has kind of informed my thought process for this week, which I'll share with you at the end of the video. And this image, when I first saw it, I wasn't sure if she looked kind of discombobulated, is the word that I came up with, or joyous. And that kind of line between those two emotions, being joyous and being a bit you know, frantic maybe, kind of speaks to my poem, or my poem speaks to that, sorry. So anyway, this image seemed appropriate. So I want her to be my pop-up image. And she's out of a magazine, so she's too flimsy. So the first thing I'm going to do is glue her onto some of this card. Now I want her to fold so she can pop up and out. When you have card or paper, it has a grain along which it folds more easily. So if you have the option, and nearly always it will run, this is A4 letter size, it will run along the long side, do you see? And you can test how easily it bends that way. I don't feel any resistance, whereas if I try and bend it that way, there's resistance. So it will fold more happily along that length. It's just a tip. So I'm going to just glue her on so that the fold will run along there, and I'll cut her out after she's glued on. So I'm going to go and do that first and set her to one side so she can dry. I've got my Mod Podge in this jar. It is Mod Podge, yeah, in this jar. I'll just do it on here and then make sure I don't put my journal in any wet glue. And then now I haven't tried this, it's just in my head, this idea of inserting a flappy thing, so I hope it works. If it doesn't work, I shall still share it with you. I'm not hiding anything. If it doesn't work, or I have to, you know, make modifications or whatever, I'll share the whole thing, because I think we can learn from each other's mistakes, or let's not even call them mistakes. Experiments, let's call them experiments, that sounds more vaguely scientific. Just get plenty of Mod Podge on there because it's a bit shiny. I hope it sticks well enough. If it doesn't, then we'll have to come up with something else. So I can stick it on there. It doesn't really matter if it's straight or anything, so I'm going to cut it out as long as she's going vaguely across the grain. There's my rag. Looks okay. Another bit of the card that I have laying over the top, and got my old credit card. Just make sure she's really smooshed down. And then the next thing I need before I set her to one side is to know how wide she is. That's alright. I need to know how wide she is, which I'll explain in a minute. So I'm going to measure her with this ruler. 2 centimetres work better. Well, let's call it 17 centimetres. Don't often use centimetres, but you know, that just happens to be better. Right, so 17 centimetres. Got her behind me. So I need my piece of card that I'm going to insert into here to be A4, which it already is, wherever it's gone. And I need it to be 17 centimetres wide. Yeah, I'm wondering if I need a bit more to go down into. No, I'm just going to go for 17 centimetres wide. Okay, so I've cut that 17 wide, so the same width as my image. And I'm eventually going to fix it in that gutter. But it doesn't need to go right down into the gutter, as long as the book can open and close. Of course my pages are off centre. I might shorten it a little bit actually. I might just shorten it a little. Just thinking on my feet here. I think I'm going to shorten it because it doesn't matter if it's, as long as it's the height of the image and a bit higher. Doesn't really matter, I don't think. If it does matter, I should just get I've got more of this, I'll just get another bit. And these bits I'm cutting off, I will need those in a little while, so they'll come in handy. Yeah, that's better. No, it doesn't kind of matter that it's different, that the pages are slightly offset. So now I need to get a fold in this. Just checking that it's going to work as a concept. I'm going to get a fold in this halfway, which hopefully will go pretty easily, because of the grain thing that I talked about. Halfway or thereabouts, do a little bone foldy press. There we go. So this will sit glued, not completely glued down, but just glued kind of here and here. Or maybe taped even. I've got some pretty sturdy double-sided tape. I might use that. And then I'm just trying to assess whether the book will then open and close before I go any further. I think it'll work. I think as long as I get it into the gutter, it will just be as if it's a page in there, so I can't see why. Famous last words. It wouldn't work. Okay, but this is now plain and boring, and this is white and boring, so I need to do something. My eco print I'm not going to do anything to. My thinking is, once I've got my image here, let me just get it back to show you. So once she's cut out, she'll sit up here as the pop-up. So there'll be space here. I think I'll write my poem here, either directly on the page or on another bit of paper and stick it on. So then this page needs to be decorated in some way. I'm not exactly sure how yet. And this needs to be decorated. So my go-to, Laurie Marie, who I just mentioned, calls it putting underpants on, which I think is hilarious. Is I'm going to do some book page collage on this and on this. So I don't think you need to watch me do that, that's going to take me some time. Basically I'm just going to tear up some book page out of my collage box and cover this with book page and cover this with book page. So I'll go ahead and do all that, and then when everything's dry I shall be back. It's the next day. It's quite early in the morning. I've just got up, haven't taken Stella out yet. I've had my cup of tea and my breakfast, but I wanted to get something on this before I take Stella for a walk, so it's got time to dry. Now the star of this spread, well, 2 stars really, one will be my poem and the other will be my lady with the brolly. as a pop-up. That's now dry. I need to cut that out and do stuff to it, but I'll get to that later. So I've got my book page collage down on this page, and also on the thing that I'm going to put in here to house the pop-up. I think I want to keep the background very muted, because the lady is quite muted as well. I mean, she's got the dark green background, but I really want her to be the star, like I said. So I've got a few ideas. I've got this, I don't know if you can see, it's a seashell, and in it is some indigo paint that a friend gave me a long time ago. It's a little bit gunky in there, but I thought I'd have a go with that, because this is blue, you know, and there's some, well, there's not really blue in the lady. Anyway, this is blue. But before I do that, I'm going to put some gesso over here, because old book page is very sucky-uppy, very, what's the proper word? Absorbent. So I just want a thin coat of gesso. So I've still got my grungy gesso in the tub, which had coffee in it. I think I'm just going to use that up. And then I thought I might play with a stencil, and just to give some texture. But first of all, let's get this done. So I'll gesso this as well. I think I'm going to give this and this exactly the same treatment, so it kind of ties in. So I'm just going to use my brush. Lumps in the gesso, but I don't care. And just give both of the pages a thin coat. If you don't have gesso, then I guess you could use some watered down acrylic paint, or if you've got matte medium, you could just put watered down matte medium. It's just to put a, get the first of the suckiness out of the book page, really. Or you could just go for it on the book page and go with what happens. This journal is about the self-care primarily, but it's also about fun and experimenting, which for me is a huge part of self-care. That permission to play kind of thing, There's no mistakes in here. It's just about expressing ourselves. Nothing can go wrong. It's only for me, except for I'm sharing it with you, but I'm choosing to do that and happy to do that. So just put that over there and put a coat on this. And then once I've used the gesso, this is just gesso with a bit of coffee in it, I'm going to do something else to the gesso, which I've done before, but not with the stuff I'm going to do it with today. All will be revealed. All will be revealed. I'm just slapping it on. So yeah, so I thought I'll get this first layer done. Take Stella for a walk. I need to just sit with my poem, because I started writing it a couple of weeks ago. And sometimes when I write, it just comes, I think I've kind of written it in my head already. Sometimes I get ideas if I'm walking or driving somewhere or whatever. And other times I sit with a pencil and paper and think, right, I've got this thought in my head that needs to come out. That's quite a big nasty lump. I don't really want that. It's funny how some lumps, it's like fraying in cloth. Sometimes it's nice fraying and I want to keep it and even encourage it, and other times it's ugly fraying and I want to get rid of it. That was an ugly lump. But all these little decisions that you make, that's part of being focused on the process. So that'll do for that. As you see here and there, getting this paper wet again, some of it is ruckling up. So hopefully the gesso will just, get that done with once and for all. So I need to set that aside, and I've got so little room because I think I mentioned in Friday's video, I've still got my big beast of a sewing machine here, so I'm still busy with the kitchen blind. Fred is asleep on my bed, so I think I'm pretty safe for now. whoops, go there, putting it over there on his basket. So what I want to do with this tiny bit of gesso that's left in this little pot, which held hummus, in case you're interested. I've got some corn flour. I believe you call it cornstarch in other countries. Now you can do this, I know people do it with talcum powder or baby powder, baking powder, joint filler compound, you know, the powdered stuff that you mix yourself. Have I got any of that? I think I bought ready mixed, because that's what I've used before, the joint compound. But basically I'm just going to use it to thicken this gesso. And there's not much gesso in here. I can always add more gesso if it gets too thick. There's probably other things that people use as well, you know. Basically you need a thickener of some kind. That's probably too much, and I need a palette knife. I need a smaller palette knife than that. Let's have this one. And I'm just going to mix. I'm not going to worry too much about lumps, because that's a little bit the point. So that it's kind of the, if you've ever done filling in walls, so it's kind of the consistency of filler, but it doesn't really matter. Now this is something you can buy, they call it texture paste, but I think why buy it when you can make your own with what you've already got. That's a little bit more philosophy. See, that's still quite runny. I think I'm going to put more. It takes quite a lot. Don't sneeze or laugh when you're handling fine powder like corn flour, because it goes everywhere. And I was wondering whether to put a bit of colour into this as well. If I put colour into it, it will go runny again. I'm thinking on my feet, on my bottom, like I said on Friday. Thinking on my bottom. Right, that's nice and thick now. So that's the consistency I would want, I think. It's, you know, thick. And that's about the thickness you'd have. Maybe it's like Christmas cake icing, if you make Christmas cakes with the thick icing. But I hope you can see that's, you know, it's sticking to the palette knife, it's quite thick. But it's just experiment, you know, just experiment. So that, is this dry enough already? Gesso dries pretty quick, still a bit wet, but I think it's good enough. Do I want to colour that? I don't think I will. I think I will just do this first and colour afterwards and see what happens, because then maybe the different surfaces will take the colour differently. Now, because this piece is going to get folded into my book, I don't want any of this stuff across the fold, because it'll crack and it might interfere with it folding. I've got some stencils. These are quilting stencils, I think. I think they came free with a magazine. I'm not completely sure. I don't know, maybe they're not, I don't know. They're stencils. If you don't have stencils, you can so easily make your own cereal box, find a pattern on the internet that you like, you know, print it out, trace it on, cut it out. It might be time consuming, you might not want to do anything that complex. The other thing I've used as stencils in the past are lace or crochet doilies. You could do that. So all I'm going to do is get some of my gunk. Hope I'm in frame. Let's move that out of the way. It's kind of blocking the light. And not too much on the palette knife. And I'm going to hold this down as best I can so it doesn't go underneath. And I'm just going to kind of smush it quite thickly into the stencil, and I'm not going for perfection, but obviously you do you. You do want to hold the stencil down quite firmly, otherwise it will just push underneath. If it does, if you make a boob, if you pull it up and it's not right, you can just scrape it off and have another go. So I've left it quite textured, so I'm now going to just lift that off straight up. There you go, you see? Do you see, do you see? Can you see that? I think you can see that. Cool, huh? Let's do another bit somewhere down here, maybe. this will be covered up by my pop-up really, but you know, it's there. Whoops, hold it down, Catherine. You just told the people to hold it down and now you're not holding it down. And this is quite thick, so it's going to take quite some time to dry, which is why I wanted to get it done before I took Stella out. You can see that I've used this stencil with paint and not cleaned it. Naughty me. Too late now, never mind. Still got my morning frog in my throat. A lovely day again. I thought they'd said it was going to rain, but obviously the rain has not shown up. So, yeah, I'm going to do this on this piece. I just put my tub down on that one, but never mind. I'm going to put it somewhere where Fred can't go walking on it. And I'm going to do the same on the page in my book, so I don't think you need to watch me do all that. When I've taken Stella for a walk and come back, and hopefully this is dry, I can have a little play with some colour. So, yeah, no time at all for you, a little while for me. See you in a bit. Okay, I've just tidied up all my mess that I just made doing the gesso texture paste stuff. And before I go for a walk, I've put it over there to dry. I've gone back to this, my pop-up lady. I've cut her out on her card, and I you'll remember, because it was no time at all for you, that I talked about trying to get where your fold goes on the, you know, on the grain of your card. So you see it's a nice clean fold now. If you try and fold cross grain, it's sometimes not a nice clean fold. So I've folded it away from the image so that when you hold it folded, the image is on the outside. So you want it to pop up like that. And I'm really pleased that, you know, she's on one side and the umbrella's on the other. It's just, I just think it's, yeah. So I've cut myself, playing with it, popping it up before it's in the book. So I've cut myself 2 more pieces of the same card. I forgot to do something that I wanted to do, because you have to tape these onto the edges. So the tape is going to be over the image. I meant to tape them on before I stuck the image on, so the image hid the tape. So, you know, if you are going to do this, and maybe you want to do that, so you tape these onto you cut your piece of card the right size, tape your side flaps on, how I'm going to show you, and then glue your image on, and then you'll hide your tape. So because I've forgotten to do that, fool that I am, on the front I'm going to use sticky tape, Scotch tape, sellotape. In England or in Britain we refer to it as sellotape. I believe in the US you call it Scotch tape. They're just brands, you know. So I'm going to get these papers away. Sorry, excuse me. So I don't glue it to my paper. I've got too much stuff. I laid all my stuff out all neatly, and now I need to move it. Let's just do it on the mat. Sorry about that. I nearly put it on top of Stella, who's sleeping on the back of the sofa behind me. Right, there we go. So all I need is that and that and my tape, which I've now buried. So I'm going to use sticky tape on the front just because it's see-through. And on the back I'm going to use my brown masking tape, but I think any tape will do as long as it's flexible, and just bearing in mind what I said about the image. So you need to get yourself a bit of tape that's the same length, thereabouts. Well, I'll just go a bit bigger and trim it afterwards, and then I'm going to stick it first, you probably won't see because it's clear, but sort of just less than half its width, overlapping my image. Don't have to be super precise as long as it's stuck. And then my bit of card, I'm going to stick it to my bit of card, but you need, my head might come in, you need a bit of a gap, like maybe 1/8 of an inch, something like that, so it can fold up and down. And I'm just trying to get it somewhat straight and level. Then I'll show you. If all you can see is my head, fear not, I shall show you in a minute. I've trapped a Fred hair behind the tape. Never mind. Just trim the excess. Sorry about my head. I haven't brushed my hair either. I haven't brushed my hair yet. Don't judge me. Don't judge me, you won't. There's a bit there, I'll just tuck that behind. So can you see, there's a little gap so that the flap moves freely. So the tape is a hinge in effect. But now, because there's a tiny bit of stickiness on the back and for reinforcement, I'm going to use some of this, which is a bit more robust than sellotape. And I'm going to just put that over the join on the back. I'm just going to do it bigger and try and come in at one side so that I'm not in your way but I can see. I'm just going to do it longer and then trim it afterwards. I think that's easier than messing about. There we go. So, you know, that's not ideal, the sellotape over her umbrella and then it'll be over part of her dress. I would have been happier if I'd remembered to glue it behind, but you know, you live and learn, as they say. Just me being finicky. Could, of course, if you had fancy tapes like washi tape or, you know, stuff like that, or if you wanted it to look more grungy, make a feature of the tape. Could have done that, I suppose, but anyway, I didn't. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing at the other side. I'm going to ink probably top and bottom with my new dauber that Maria sent me. Thank you, Maria. Remember, for ages I said, and maybe I should still say, these aren't the snippies, these are the blunties, but Sue bought me the snippy fiskers, and we used to say snippy snippies, thank you, Sue, and now we have to say new dauber, thank you, Maria. So yeah, so I'm going to ink the edges, stick the other flap on, go and take Stella for a walk like I said I was going to, because she's getting a bit agitated because it's all of 10 to 9 and she hasn't been for a walk yet. And then I'll be back and we'll move on with the painting on the background if it's dry, hopefully. So I'll see you in a bit. Back from our walk. I even cut the grass. Well, I say I cut the grass. I went up and down twice just outside the window here, the bit where Stella goes out to do her wee and so on, because it was getting a bit long. So it was literally a 2-minute job. Anyway, so some colour on here. It's pretty dry. It's quite textured. This is bent up because I put the wet on it, like I said. Shall I start on this one? Put the book to one side and start on this, but it's going to get glued in or stuck in some way, so it will be fine. I'm just going to try and flatten it a little bit. So I've got my gold from Amy, thank you Amy. There might be some more gold appearing because that was lovely. And I've got these craft paints. I think I showed you the grey before. I've got a feeling I had a little chest of drawers from IKEA, you know, those little wooden drawer things, and I think I got them to paint that. I don't have it anymore, it's, you know, left behind in my former life, but I've got the paints. I think that's what I got those for. But this is a sort of pinky colour and this is a browny colour, so I might use some of those, which means I'll need my plate out to tip some onto. And I've got the blue that I showed you earlier. I'm just going for that kind of distressed old wallpaper background type thing, I think. I don't know. I don't really know. Let's just get some of this out. I give it a shake. So, you know, you just use what you've got, would be my advice. And whatever fits with your image and the vibe you're going for. And, got a brush. That's a nice watercolour brush, so I might save that to use with that. I think that is made from natural indigo. Pretty sure it is. Let's get this great big gungy brush for the other stuff. And you can just have fun with these backgrounds, can't you? You can just try different techniques, or, you know, when it's dry you can do some doodling. This pink looks white on the dish, but it looks pink in the thing. I'm just going to dab it on here and there. I'm just messing. I talked earlier about Laurie Marie Jenkins. I've since discovered, a couple of you told me, and then I went and looked at her channel, that she now is in Costa Rica. She's not in California anymore, and she's kind of moved on from her mixed media altered book type stuff to slow stitch, which is lovely, and she's kind of making vessels with natural found materials in her local, you know, on her property. Oh, that's cool, that brown on the stencil and things like that, but there is a load of older videos with the mixed media which is still up, and it was those that I was sort of watching really. Right, I think I'm going to just get a bit more water on it and just make it a bit, because of the gesso you can kind of get away with this, putting this much water on. I mean, it's still not watercolour paper, but and if it buckles we can just flatten it. I've sort of stayed away from the fold, but there's no reason why I can't get paint on the fold. You just go across a bit, and I might well ink the edges when it's dry. That's okay. And I like the way it's running through the gaps in the stenciling, so what I'm thinking I might do is get some of this blue, this indigo blue, just try and get it activated a bit. Oh, it's gone a bit chalky because of the chalk paints, but that's okay. And do some dribbling. Not me, the paint. Let's see. Is that going to run nicely through there? I don't know if you can see, but I kind of have to hold it vertical. So it's sort of running between the cracks in the stencil. Yeah, cool. I hope you can see what I'm doing. You'll certainly see the finished result anyway. I might do some over here just for fun. And you can just, you know, turn it every way you want and let it run. Do some on the other side. I do like the way that's running between the gaps. Some down there. Just dab it around. And if it's too strong, or it's gone where you don't want it, you just need a bit of rag. I've got a bit of kitchen roll that I used to wipe that stencil off earlier. And then you can just dab it off where it's, you know, if it's too strong or if it's somewhere you don't want it. And you can also use the kitchen roll or a rag or whatever you're using as a tool. Look, you see, if I dab like that, it's like sponging. Did you sponge all your walls in the 90s when you were doing all your stenciling? I've talked about that before. I can remember sponging. Rag rolling, that was another thing. In the, yeah, I think I was doing it in the 90s. I'm not sure when it started. But remembering the house out, that's quite cool. That's kind of like feathers. So this is what I kind of was talking about with the playing. I really like that that spongy effect. I'll leave some of the lines, I'm not going to get rid of all of them. So I think I'll just let that dry before I decide what to do next. But I hope you can see how cool that is. I'm going to go and do that same thing on my page of my book. I don't think you need to watch me do that. So I'll go and do exactly what I've done on there on my book page. And when all that's dry, I'll come back and show you the next stage. I think I'm going to go and have a cup of tea and sit with my poem for a little bit while I let that dry. So I'll be back in. Okay, that's all dry. That's my page and my inserty bit. And I just think it's fab, personally. Just love the colours and everything. Now some of my textured stuff is a bit textured. It's, you know, it's sticking up a bit, but that's okay. I've got blue hands. I've got my handy dandy sanding block, so I think I'm just going to just give it a little sand here and there, partly to distress it and partly to, you know, just get rid of some of the, it is still a bit wet here and there. I probably should wait a bit longer, but you know, not really known for patience sometimes. Sometimes I'm very known for patience when I'm stitching. And I like that actually. It's not only is it taking it down a tiny bit, but it's distressing it, which is kind of the look I'm going for. So I'll just go over it, you know, here and there. I don't think you really want to hear me sanding. Just gently with my bit of sandpaper, and then I'll be back and talk you through what I'm going to do next when I know myself. Okay, no wonder my room's dusty when I do things like that in here, but I've got nowhere else to do it. Well, I suppose I could take it all outside, but that would be too much of a faff. Anyway, so I've sanded, and I just love here and there where it's, I hope I've got you in the right place again, where it's you know, pulled the paint off some of the top areas of the stencil, and I just love it. I just love it. Such fun. Right, there's still more fun to be had because I feel like doing some splattering. I'll make even more mess in here. So I'm going to use my blue again, and I've got my big watercolour paintbrush, and I need something to stop it all going up the window. I'll just be careful, she said, famous last words. So I'm just going to get some really wet paint, quite a lot of pigment, although it's very strong, this indigo. By the way, that bit of kitchen roll that I was using earlier, I will save that. That will go in my collage box. This, once I've finished, you know, so it won't go to waste. So I've got lots of wet blue on my brush, and I'm just going to do some just gentle splatters in the hope that it doesn't go all up the window. Obviously this area is going to be covered by that. So I should probably just put that there and do everything all in one go, and I've got greaseproof all over my book to protect that. A bit more. And then while this dries, I shall work on my poem. I've had a thought. A bit more water. There we go, that's better. Whoop. Just love splattering. Yeah, I don't really feel, you know, I've got that little room, those of you that have seen Park Home Life with my cheese boxes and all that, that's, I sometimes go in there to iron, rarely, or if I need to do standing up stuff, but on the whole I much prefer working here. I don't really, well the thing is, if I had the blind, I need to get a blind in there really, you know, a sheer blind, because if I'm standing there working, and which is fine, but if I'm standing there videoing, whoopsie, that's a path through there where the neighbours walk, and that's not a problem, except they will come and talk to me at the window. So it might take me a while to get a video done. Apparently I can't stop splattering. I do see that I am splattering where I shouldn't, including on my girl. Okay, so I'm going to let all that dry. I'm going to put all that to one side. You can just go on and on with this. Look, I've splattered on her, I better get that off. I care more about that than I do about the splatters up my window. And I inked the edges of that, I told you that, didn't I? I'm going to let that dry because I want to do some gold, maybe some of my gold leaf and some of my gold paint. Yeah, so let's get the poem in. Well, because what I was thinking, I'll just show you quickly, the way this is going to be constructed with the pop-up, which I can't lay on there now because it's wet, but there, and those tabs will tuck in under, it will create a pocket. So I thought, rather than writing my poem over my eco print, you know, here, other than writing it on there, I thought maybe I'll do my poem on a little card that can slot in the pocket. Oh, we can try, we can always change our mind. So what I've done is, I'll just move this, whoopsie, over there. Stay. I've got this, I printed my poem out on a bit of sketchbook paper. I'll read it to you, shall I? Does it have a title? I guess the title is Remember All Things Are Possible. It says, if a part of yourself is rootless, wandering and lost, untethered like a balloon floating high in the air, buffeted by uncaring winds, your inner soul child sobbing, rooted to the ground, her chubby fist clenching and unclenching around a string that's no longer there, a ghost string, despairing, hating herself for being unable to hold on to the two parts of herself, unable to hold herself together. Remember, all things are possible. The balloon might tumble to the earth, or become snagged in a friendly tree, or be caught by a helpful bird, or the wind might relent and send a gust to blow it earthwards, or the child might realise she can fly and rescue it herself. So I've printed that out on sketchbook paper. As always, if you want to write that in your own journal, I give it to you freely. I also typed the words "Remember all things are possible" bigger at the bottom of the page, because I might want to use those somewhere else, maybe on the flip out itself. So I want to cut this out, but before I do it, like I said, it's sketchbook paper, so it's a bit sturdy. But I've got this is just an image from a magazine, but it's got that same kind of vibe. It picks up the pink in the umbrella, and vaguely little bits of green, but it's got the blue in. I better put that blue away, otherwise I'm going to get everything blue. So I thought that might be nice for the back of it. So I need to glue that onto there. I think I'm going to tear this down, not the size I eventually want it, but just smaller. Sound of tearing. Applause. I'll save that in case I want to use that indeed. I have got blue paint on the window, never mind. Because I think it's easier to just stick the two things together now and then cut it when it's dry, cut the whole thing down, rather than cutting them individually and trying to get them the same size. So I'll just tear this down bigger than I want it. And stick it onto there. I'll just have a look at if I want it to be in any particular area of that image. I think it's pretty nice all over, really. I'll just tear this slightly narrower. That's better. I think that'll be sturdy enough, If you wanted to do something similar, you can always do a third layer, put a bit of cardstock in between or something. Of course, I've put the Mod Podge away. That's limited desk space. I can't leave everything out. Plus, it's not really... I've left my brush in the water. That's very naughty. Very, very naughty. And that's a good brush. It ruins your brushes. So I'll just use Mod Podge. So I'll put Mod Podge on this because it's the smallest one, and stick it onto the magazine and let it dry. And when everything's dry, when this is dry and the paint splatters are dry, I'll be back. Okay, you don't need to watch me Mod Podge, do you? Okay, I'm back because I just had a thought. I was just tidying up a bit after gluing my words on. I'm going to try splattering with the gold paint. I don't know if it's going to work. Wouldn't see why it wouldn't. We won't know unless we try. So I've put another bit of greaseproof paper up behind me so I don't get gold all over my window. So I hope it doesn't make the light too awful. There's my brush gone. So let's have a go. I'm just going to try and get a cleanish bit of palette. I probably should get clean water, but anyway. I'm just going to get it really, really wet and get as much of the gold moving as I can. Look at that, liquid gold. Yummy, yummy. wet enough? There's tiny bits. Yeah, it is working. I don't know if you can see because it's quite... Oh, there's bigger. So a tiny bit more water. Again, I've got my bit of kitchen roll standing by, so if I make any big blobs that I don't like, just go straight away with the kitchen roll. Kind of hold your brush nearer the end so it's more wibbly wobbly. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Gold splatters. Is there anything more yummy? I'm going to cover the whole page. Let's do some on here as well. Yeah, if you hold your brush so it's wibbly wobbly, you know, right at the end, so it can wibble, I think that kind of works better. I need to fashion a sort of cardboard screen. I must go in my woman's shed and find a bit of cardboard. Fashion myself a folding screen. I can't stop now. This is so... I actually want my walls in my home to look like this. On a future episode of Park Home Life, my walls will have been mixed media'd. Oh, that's so great. Amy, thank you so much for this gold paint. I can't stop now. Right, stop. That's luscious. Can't stop. Stop. I'm stopping. Right, there we go. So gold splatters. Put the lid back on that. I'll hold it up. I hope you can see. It's probably easier if I hold this a little bit up. I'm just going to stand up, scrape a chair. I angle it that way. Can you see the gold splatters? How yummy they are. Right, so I'm going to let all that dry. I've stuck my words on. I'll wait for that glue to dry and I'll cut that card down. And then I'll be back. Okay, I just realised I've been messing about for the best part of an hour and I left the video running, so I've got major editing to do. Anyway, so what have I done in that hour? I have cut out my tag with my poem on, and I've inked the edges, or I tore it actually, and I inked to get rid of the white teary lines and just to give it a nice little frame. And I've stuck on a little strip of cloth which has got, sort of picks up the blue and the pinks. So that I plan to put in there when it's all assembled. And is that all I've done? I think that's all I've done. Oh no, I've done this. And I thought I'd done more. I sanded the background a little bit with my sanding block just to rough it up a bit. And I stuck those bigger words on from the poem. And I also went round the edge of the girl with a graphite pencil just to pop her out a little bit more. So the next thing I want to do is a bit more gold. I'm going to play with the gold foil again and the glue stick. So I'm just going to put a few little, putting this here because I don't want to waste it, putting it behind the thing. So that will be stuck there eventually. So I'm just going to put some little tiny smears. I did this last week, if you watched last week. The thing is you have to kind of remember where you've put it. And then I've got this gold foil. And I need a soft dry brush. Dry being the operative word. That one I think is dry. No, I can't remember where I put the glue now. Oops, a little bit. Can I see it? There's some there. Whoops. Sorry you can't see, but is there some there? Put that away for a minute. Now that's the only issue, is remembering where you've put the glue. There, I can feel it. Whoops, I think that glue had dried too much. Maybe a little bit will stick. So I think you just kind of have to go for it straight away, otherwise you forget where it is. And just be careful. You need 3 hands. And don't breathe on the foil because it just wafts away. So I'm just putting it on, and then I'll give it a minute for the glue to dry, and I'll go back and brush away the excess then. So So I don't think you need to see me do all that. Okay, if you're new here, if you weren't here last week when you saw me messing about with this lovely gold foil that my friend Rosie gave me, I'm aware that there's proper stuff you're supposed to use, but I did ask a little while ago if anybody knew of a way of doing it without the proper stuff, and quite a few of you said it will work with glue stick, so that's why I'm doing it not proper with glue stick. So I put a tiniest smear of the glue stick, laid the foil on, wait for it to dry, and then just go back with my brush and just push away any loose bits that aren't stuck down. And because it's in my journal, you know, it'll stay well enough. And you just get these little kind of distressed dots of gold. And once I've got everything off that's loose, I shall gently tip the excess bits back into my envelope. Okay, so I've done that. So it's just another element of gold. You see it does stick pretty well. Still some loose bits here and there, but they'll go away. So now I need to construct. Now it is important, I was having a play, if you do it this way and not the way that Laurie Marie did it, where was working in an altar book, so she cut 2 of the pages down to create the pocket for the pop-up. If you do it this way with the added flap, you really do need to make sure that you get it down into your spine. I'm between 2 signatures. If you were going to do it, you know, somewhere else, it will probably be easier, you know, somewhere else in your book. But because I've got quite a deep gutter, because otherwise what will happen if you stick it like this, you see your book won't close, will it? I don't know. No, I think it will. I don't know. Well, let me stick it and let me do it wrong, and then you won't have to. I think I'm going to try and get it down in as far as I can, as if it was a page that I've added. I will use the tacky glue. I was just debating whether it even needs the stinky glue. I think the tacky glue, which is a bit stronger than normal PVA, or if you've got a heavy matte medium, or otherwise if you've got what I call stinky glue, you know, the Fabri-Tac type stuff. And I think probably the best thing is to do it one side at a time. And the important thing though is to not stick where you want your tabs to go in. So I think I'm going to be sensible for once in my life and get my thing vaguely central and put a pencil mark. There's a pencil. You see what I'm doing. I'm just marking where the tabs are, and I'm going to leave a bit extra as well just to be on the safe side. I'm just marking where the tabs are, and then when I come to glue it, I won't put the glue all the way up to my marks. Just for a bit of wiggle room. Right, so I'll just darken those lines, make them a bit straighter. So I want it slightly bigger than that, so let's do it this way. I don't know if you can see, so my marks are here. I think I'm going to go maybe quarter or half an inch away from them that way, so that my gap to put my lady in is extra big. And draw a line there, and then the same thing the other end, making it wider, so going towards the end. You see I'm not anywhere near in the middle, but I don't think I mind. Do I? Do I mind? Do you know what? I'm going to glue it a ruler's width each side, and then I know it's in the middle, and then I can position the lady where I want her. So I've got extra wiggle room. You could glue it or stick it just at the very ends, so you don't have to stick it further. I'm just sticking it further for a bit of security. So I'm going to have a way up. Not really, I don't think I mind which way up it goes. I don't think I really mind. So I'm going to stick one side down first and let that dry completely, I think. So I'm going to put glue where I just marked, here and here, and then I'm going to push it right down into the gutter and glue it down to this page. The other thing is I've got all sorts of stuff going on under there where I'm about to glue it, including over my gold foil. Oh, that was a shame. never mind. So, you know, it'll need a sturdy glue. I'll try the tacky glue, see how it works, and I'll report back. So I'll put glue here and here, put that onto there, put some greaseproof and then something heavy over it, and go and have a cup of tea, another cup of tea. I might have my lunch even. Yeah, it's 20 to 1. And then I'll come back when that's done. Okay? So you don't need to watch me putting glue on, I'm sure. Oh, I'm going to ink the edge of this first. Oh, I just remembered. I'll do that first, then I'll glue it on. Okay, I just had a brainwave while I was trying to make more room. I've put my sewing machine on the kitchen table. I just suddenly realised there's only me here. If I want to have, you know, my stuff all over my house, then I can. So I have. So I've got way loads of room now that you can't see, but it helps me enormously. Anyway, so I stuck that like I showed you, put some heavy books on it, left it for maybe a good hour, and then I stuck the other side, and I made sure, like I keep saying, that I pushed it right down into the gutter. So I kind of held this down in when I had the glue on here and made sure that it really went round that corner. I've got a really pronounced gutter, yours may well be different. But now that it's all dry, you'll see that my book opens and closes fine. And I think if I hadn't done that, it wouldn't have, basically. So, I mean, this is lovely just as it is, but it's going to be even lovelier. I'm so pleased with the way the gold and the blue and everything looks. I'll do a little bit of handheld just at the very end of the video. After I say goodbye to you, I'll just insert a little bit of handheld so you can see all the texture. Right, so now I've got my girl with the 2 flaps, and that needs to be stuck in here and here. So you need to put, and I have put 2 tiny pencil dots. I've kind of marked and measured so she's vaguely central, because apparently it bothers me. So you need to put the glue on the, only on the tabs, on the flippy bits, and on the back of them. So I'm going to use the tacky glue again, and just, and this is now exactly how Laurie Marie did it. It's just I had to construct that extra thing because of not working in an altered book and not wanting to sacrifice pages. I want to get glue on the back of there really, because that needs to pop up and down. So try and be a bit less messy than I have been. And then it takes a little bit of fiddling to get it in. I've tried it already without the glue to make sure it does go in and open and close and do what it should. And I'm happy to report that it works. There's my rag. Let's get that glue off there. So, get the glue off my fingers so I don't get glue where I don't want it. So now I'm going to start with this side where I've marked, so I can see my 2 little dots. Excuse my head if it comes in. So I'm going to lift the pocket up a little bit and just slide it in. Just up to the end of the cardboard basically. Get it somewhat straight. Get the rag back in. Being aware that I have got glue on the other side already, it might have been smarter to wait. My fingers are covered in all kinds of stuff. That's okay. Make sure that it, well, it's not okay, it needs pressing down a bit more on it. Before that it needs to come further out. You don't want to push it in too far because it needs to be able to swing on that little bit of tape. And better to do it this way around. It's the first time I've done this, can you tell? Come on, in you go. You know you want to. There we go. And just keep pressing that until the tacky glue, yeah, I would advise you not to put glue on that tab until you've done this side. So now I need to get this one in the other side, and you have to lift the page up for that. So again, you need 3 hands. Can one of you hold this up for me while I push this in? I don't want to push all the glue off the back. Right, I'm just going to lift it up to make sure it looks straight. Yeah, watch Laurie Marie, you'll see she is much more skilled at this than I am. I think that's straight enough. I can, if I wanted to, I could put a weight here and a weight here. I wouldn't put a weight over the middle because it'll squash down my pop-up. But once you've got it in position, you could then just weight it here and here. but you'll see that I'm not going to put my card in yet either, because there might be wet glue inside, but you end up with a pocket each side as well, which I think is really cool. I haven't got anything to go in this pocket, but that might be added to later. I am thinking at the end of the year, or at some point, I might go back through the journal and maybe rework things here and there, or add to things. I don't know, we'll see. So I am going to just put something heavy there and there and just leave it for a minute. Just come back to say quickly, if you're at all worried that you've got glue that's squirted out behind there, I would get a bit of greaseproof, or a bit of, you know, if you've got a bit of old acetate plastic laying around or something like that, and just slot it into your pocket so you don't glue your pocket shut, if having a pocket is important to you. Have I glued my pocket shut? No, I don't think I have. So yeah, just slot something in there so that it doesn't, just occurred to me. I'll be back when it's all dry. Okay, so that's my finished spread. I'm very happy with it, and it's been great fun, so it's win-win. And also the poem was inspired by, well, all kinds of things really. I had been reading Vasilisa, as you know if you watched last week, and there Clarissa Pinkola Estes talks about the ego and the intuition being sort of two parts of you, so that got me thinking about being, you know, I think we're multifaceted, but in that instance those two different sides, the very sort of practical, pragmatic side, and then the more intuitive, maybe deeper side. And that was my analogy of the little girl with the balloon, and feeling that those two parts of you weren't united, weren't kind of working together. So that was the thinking behind my poem. And then, it's going to chime too only. Still haven't had my lunch, but anyway. And then this image of the woman that I had in the front of my book from the beginning of the year. I know she's not holding a balloon, it's an umbrella, but it's got that same kind of feeling of trying to hold on to something. And like I talked about earlier, that fine line between joy and, you know, verging on maybe sort of too much euphoria. You know what I'm talking about. So yeah, so everything just came together, and the background really was just the fun creating the background. But I like as well the textured element, the layers and the textures. That always relates, doesn't it, to nearly everything we do in self-care journaling. But the idea of the fluidity of the watercolour running between the cracks, the hard surface of the texture paste, you know, I think there's layers of meaning to be found everywhere, and I just love it. It's given me so much pleasure to create it as well. I hope you have as much fun if you have a go, or at least I hope you've enjoyed watching me do it. So my little tab with my poem on slots in there quite nicely. I didn't glue it shut, and you see it stands slightly proud when it's open, and as you close it, you see it does that. And then as you open it, whoop. Isn't that cool? Have you seen? You can always rewind and keep playing if you like that. So yeah, so thank you very much, Laurie Marie, for showing how to do the pop-up, and you know, that's my take on it, my adaptation of it. I'll do a little handheld video, like I said, just so you can really see the scrummy texture up close. And meanwhile, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to you joining me next time, wherever that may be. Thank you, lots of love. Bye bye.